Hey, this is Flo and welcome back to the sixth episode already of our 30-day weather app challenge. In the last episode, we started working with the API. We have generated this weather data model using the Ducky app, and we have also written our weather service. We have subscribed to that service in our city overview model right here. And this is where we're gonna pick off now. So one thing that I want to note, I took a look at our code during the break of the sessions, and I've noticed that the probability of precipitation, I believe that's what the POP stands for here, was actually interpreted as an integer by Ducky because it had a 0 in the API request that we used for testing, but actually it's a double. So because of that, our decoder didn't work. But I now changed it from integer to double, so I can remove this warning now, just so you know, in case you are also using this API, the POP value should be a double. Okay, next thing is, in the first episode I talked to you about some icon assets that we're going to use, namely these icons here, but actually we're not going to use them, because I found out something pretty cool. The API that we're using, Openweathermap, actually has icons by itself. And if we go back to our model here, then we can go down a bit, I believe. Let me see, where is it? Here. Each of these weather structs actually has an icon string. And this icon string can be used to fetch these Openweathermap icons via this URL. So I believe it would be just making more sense to actually use these icons here. And that's actually pretty easy. So you can generate a URL by just pasting the icon's name right here in the URL. And then you can use that icon to basically show the weather, and you don't have to use some other icons. Now what we're going to use for that is the SDWebImages package, which allows you to display images from a web URL. And it's actually pretty easy to install, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I'll just copy this GitHub URL. Of course, it will be linked in the description. Then I'll go back into Xcode, go to File, Swift Packages, Add Package Dependency. I'll paste in the GitHub URL here. Click Next. Once again, Next. We'll resolve this package. And this might take a second. No, actually, it's quite fast. Okay. Yes, we want this product. Hit Finish. Now Xcode will index the files. Okay. So now, as you can see, under Swift Package Dependencies here in the File Navigator, you can see there is no SDWebImage, which is the UIKit version, and SDWebImage SwiftUI, which is the SwiftUI version. Okay. So let's go back into our city overview. And let's enable the canvas to start the preview. Okay, so now that the preview is up, we can actually start trying out this SDWebImage package. So for that, we'll just change this cloud icon here to one of the icons from Openweathermap. And for that, we will just create a... actually, we have to import SDWebImages first, sorry. Import SDWebImage SwiftUI, and also regular SDWebImage, I believe. I think you need both. And then we can use the WebImage struct, which just takes in a URL. Okay, so just for testing purposes, I'll initialize a URL right here. Later on, we will do that in our view model. Okay, so what's the string? This is the string. Let's copy it. Copy. And let's also think about which icon we want. We want the cloud icon, so 03D. Okay. So replace this 10D with 03D. Then let's also make this resizable, make this scaled to fit, and give this a, basically we can just copy the frame, I would say, from up here, copy and paste, and we can remove this placeholder image that we had before. We can resume the canvas. Okay, so I just added the S for secure HTTP here, and now it works. I'm not sure whether that's an Xcode issue or a Swift issue. I'm not quite sure. I believe that Swift only allows secure connections, so that might be the case. So now it works. As you can see, the cloud icon is displayed now. And if we want to change it, we can just, for example, use the 10D, which is the, let's say, raining icon. So let's put in 10D, not a preview. This always takes a second to load, but now you see there is the other icon. So this is just a very easy way to download the icons, the SDWebImage SwiftUI package. Okay, so now that we have that, let's save the file and let's actually use the API data that we fetched. So I can remove this dump call here. I use that for debugging. And what we're going to do is we will create computed variables in our overview model for everything that we want to display. So let's take a quick look into our weather data struct. So there is a current, so weather data.current.weather, and then we can get everything that's important. Okay, so let's actually make this a split screen. Have the weather data struct on the left and our overview model on the right. And now we will just create a bunch of computed variables. So let's start with var icon string. Of course, this should be lowercase, which is of type string. And actually, this is kind of redundant, so let's remove the string here in the name, just call it icon. Okay, so let's just implement this one. Weather data dot current dot weather, and now this is an array, so we want to just access the first one, and then let's use the icon. And because this is all optional, we can chain it like this, and we will just use a placeholder icon if we can't load one. So let's just use this icon string if we can't load another icon. Okay, so now we're going to do this for each property that we need. Okay, so maybe we don't actually want to just have a string here, and this is, by the way, also wrong, because here we just get the icon name, and on the other hand, we have the whole URL, so maybe let's create a second computed variable. Let's call this one icon URL of type URL, and let's copy this string and replace it with just 10D. Now what we can do is construct a URL here from our icon, or from this string, and then in here we will just use the icon string and force unwrap the URL. Okay, and now we can actually go into our city overview again and actually start to use some of these values. So let's use the model.icon URL here. Let's use the model.temp here. Let's use the description for this one. Okay, so now if we close this right side and start the canvas again. Okay, so it actually updates, and I'd say the temperature is off by a bit, so we might have to think about that, which unit this actually uses. I'm not sure, but this looks pretty good. Okay. Yeah, it even has the description here. Okay, I like it. So obviously the preview now doesn't work because all the data is getting fetched dynamically, as you can see. So next thing, we should actually fill this information box with some data. So what we need is the feels like temperature, the humidity, the pressure, and the wind speed. Okay, so let's see, where do we find these? In weatherdata.current. Okay, so let's create these computed variables as well. Wow. Feels like. Okay, and then we can actually update these values here. So model.feels like, model.humidity, model.pressure, and model.wind speed. Now if we resume the canvas once again and actually run it, okay, it did not update, so we have to build again. So it still has the 42% placeholders here. So let's resume it now. Then afterwards, start it again. Okay, so for some reason all of these are 0. But that might be because we have some placeholder latitude and longitude here. So just put in some random numbers. So we'll have to see about that. Okay, so let's do the hourly forecast next. Actually, we called a variable daily forecast for some reason, but I believe this is hourly forecast because this is the daily forecast then. Yeah. So we have these hourly boxes and we didn't even refactor these yet. So we first of all have to pull out all the strings into their own state variables. So let's do that first. State var time string. Then we need a icon string. And lastly, we need a temperature string. Now we can fill these in here. So time, icon, and temperature. And for the icon, we also need to make this a web image later on. I'd say just scrap the preview for now. Let's go back into the city overview. And okay. So let's go. For each model dot weather data dot hourly. Let's see, does this have some kind of yeah, we could use the date as an ID. So ID, use the date, forecast in. Okay, so because this is optional, what we're just going to do, because we want to force unwrap this, we will check whether it is nil or not. So if model.weatherdata is not nil, then we can actually use it. Guard statements and so on don't work in SwiftUI right now, as far as I know. So this is just the easiest way to check whether it is nil or not for an optional value. So now what we want is this hourly box. We can grab the forecast dot first thing is time, so forecast dot date dot, let's just use description for now. We can refactor this date later on. The icon we'll leave. We also have to do this later on, and the temperature. We can grab this from the forecast dot temperature and make this a string. Okay, so let's think about the icon. I'll actually do this in the line above it, so that URL equal, and let's copy this URL stuff from over here. Okay, copy. paste it in here, and instead of just icon, we're gonna say forecast dot, does this have a weather property? Yes, and then probably the icon, no, dot, oh yeah, we have to grab the first one again, and then the icon. Let's actually not force on, oops, let's actually not force unwrap it, but let's provide a placeholder one like this again. Okay, so and then we can use the URL here. Then of course you have to change this to a URL, and then we can change this or import web image first, SDWebImage, and then SDWebImage SwiftUI. Then instead of this image, we are using a web image with our icon URL, and let's also make it scale to fit. And now we should actually be able to see the hourly forecast. Okay, so the preview loaded, and as you can see, the hourly forecast works. It's all the same image. Oh no, actually not. You see, the icon also changes. Okay, so obviously we need to somehow format this date, but we'll do that in the next episode, I'd say. And I also have to look into why all of these values are 0. So I'll try it out with like actual coordinates of some actual city. Yeah. But for now, I would say that's it for episode 6. And in episode 7, we will continue working on all of this. We will also work on the daily forecast, I would say, and maybe even think about the unit conversion here. But that's it for this one. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, please subscribe to the channel, comment down below if I did something stupid or if it could have been done easier, and I'll see you in the next one.